One of the funniest scaling methods that I have consistently seen people try to use is the creation is equal to destruction method. I'll just be watching people do Demon Slayer versus battles, and then they try to upscale Muzan by saying that Muzan holds more power than Nakime, who can create and control the Infinity Castle, which is, as far as we know, quite literally infinite, and thus Muzan's power level should be above infinite. And it's not just Demon Slayer, I've seen it for Dragon Ball, Naruto, pretty much any of the more popular battle shonen series that have any large-scale creation feats. Even JJK is no exception, because I've seen so many people try to argue that Dagon creating a large island within his domain expansion means that he himself is at the very least island level in AP, and that's just ridiculous. I'm not saying that he can't be island level, I'm saying that using this method of scaling to get him there is crazy. Let me explain why. So the creation is equal to destruction logic goes as follows. If you can create something out of nothing, then the equal opposite should be true, that you can destroy that same something into nothing. Often when people try to debunk this, they mistakenly use examples of someone building something, not necessarily meaning that they can destroy it. However, building is not creating. Creating is the act of truly making something from nothing. If the raw materials are already there, and you over the course of time refined those materials to create parts, and then proceeded to assemble those parts, what you just did was build something. You didn't create it out of nothing. So, just to be clear here, the rule solely talks about spawning things into existence. And this is where we run into our first real problem, and that is the fact that 99% of the time, when these characters in Battle Shonen create something, they're not actually creating something out of nothing. They're transmuting energy into a product. This is a very important distinction that I want you guys to understand. Think back to the Dagon example where he transmutes his own cursed energy into the environment that becomes his domain. The island didn't just spawn out of nowhere. If the entire premise revolves around the idea of creation, then why are we constantly using examples of advanced transmutation to adhere to this logic? Now you might be thinking, why does it matter that one spawns something out of nothing and the other converts a measurable energy into a tangible product? Isn't that better for the logic actually? And to that I say no, because we really don't know or understand how fictional transmutation of energy into a product even works. To demonstrate why that matters, we should look at nuclear energy. Two methods of producing large amounts of usable energy are nuclear fission and nuclear fusion. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but the takeaway is that both methods have different thresholds for the amount of energy that needs to be put in order to create more usable energy. For example, nuclear fusion is currently deemed as something that is unsustainable to replicate because you would need an incredible combination of sufficient pressure and high temperatures to sustain the process. Since we can't easily replicate the pressure aspect on Earth, the solution is to raise the temperature from what the sun would do at 15 million degrees Celsius all the way to well over 100 million degrees Celsius. To achieve such temperatures, we wouldn't even be breaking even with the energy spent versus the energy gained, hence why it isn't sustainable. It's for the same reason that I don't believe it to be logical to scale someone who absorbed a star to the star itself. It's like eating food. The act of moving your arms to grab food takes energy. The act of chewing your food takes energy. The act of swallowing takes energy. The act of digesting your food takes energy. And our bodies can't even extract all the energy out of food, which becomes fecal waste. Basically, to gain energy, you have to spend energy, which is that threshold. And on top of an energy threshold existing, the method that you use to generate energy can also create vastly different results in your output. And transmutation takes that to a whole other level of unknown. We don't know if there are different methods of transmutation, nor do we know to what extent transmutation maximizes the potential energy within atoms. If it's anything remotely close to real life, then chances are that there is very little visual relation to how much energy the product of said transmutation can have versus what it takes to destroy it. I'm not talking about potential energy, which always stays the same within a closed loop, but specifically the usable energy. The dumbed down version of everything I just said is this. 1. Aside from the energy loss that became your product, the very act of transmuting your energy into an attack or creation also takes energy. 2. The product of said transmutation is not limited to being less than, nor guaranteed to be more than the amount of usable energy that you inputted. It all depends on the method that you use to transform the part of the potential energy into usable energy. In fact, there are usually narrative reasons for this to be the case. If your raw energy was enough to destroy your opponent, why bother wasting your energy to transform it into a lightning attack, for example? Some characters do tend to actually do this, like Naruto with his Rasengan, but even in the Naruto verse, it's generally considered more lethal to transform your chakra into a jutsu to attack rather than just brute forcing it. The second major problem that we run into when we try to scale creation to destruction is that there's no clear definition for what we've collectively decided qualifies as something that's destroyed. If you create a volcano, does having enough power to trigger a caldera-like explosion qualify? Or do you need to be able to destroy your creations down to the mineral or cellular level in order for it to qualify? Or does it need to be destroyed down to the atomic level? Or can it only apply if you have the power needed to completely erase it from existence? Either way, all of these result in completely different required power levels. If you can completely erase that volcano from existence and it's not some magical hacks ability, then chances are that you also have the power to blow up the planet. But now all of a sudden the scale would no longer be equal, because we'd be scaling creating a volcano to planetary, hence why this argument very quickly falls apart. Now that we've tackled the common misconceptions of building versus creating, transmuting versus creating, and also covered the problem of destruction being ill-defined, it's time to move on to the actual creation. So, as I've said before, the fundamental idea behind creation is that you can just spawn something in. You don't actually spend any energy to do so, because if you did, it would fall under energy transmutation. This is something that, under our current understanding of science, should fall outside of the realm of logic itself. We have no way to concretely determine whether someone who can create anything can even undo that. But for now, let's go with the assumption that they can. The fun part of such a power is that there would literally be no limit to it. If you don't actually spend any energy to use your creation abilities, then you wouldn't have any theoretical limit to what or how much you can create. Therefore, you would also have the power to create something equally destructive to destroy your prior creation. The whole paradox here is that true creation is limitless by design. There wouldn't need to be any scaling to your creations, since you would always scale beyond infinite. Anything less, and it falls back into the idea of all energy existing within a closed loop. Now, I will say that when it comes to true creation, since it's fiction, it's pretty much inevitable that there are examples of this somewhere. A funny one would be like Gremmy from Bleach, whose only real limiting factor was him being a moron. But yeah, the majority of characters don't actually create things, and when they do, it should be a sign of infinite power. I'm not too sure in what camp reality warpers would fall into, since they're commonly considered to be using their abilities to essentially rewrite the code that makes up the reality itself instead of actually creating new things. Although not every reality warper functions under the same rules, so it'd need to be tackled on a case-by-case basis. Alright, moving on. The third type of creation that people scale to destruction that I wanted to talk about are the Snowball archetype of creations. A good example of this category are characters that can create black holes. Even if you adhere to the qualifications of true creation, creating something like a black hole does not necessarily mean that you scale to it, since black holes naturally increase in power the more they absorb. It's like arguing that if you kicked a rock down a mountain, and that rock hit other rocks along the way, and it slowly built up to a huge landslide, that you yourself have the power to move all of those rocks in a single attack. And then aside from that, the majority of black holes that I've seen in Battle Shonen do not actually display the properties of real black holes, which kind of make it hard to draw an accurate comparison. Like, no, Frieren spawning what looks like a black hole yet behaves nothing like it does not suddenly mean that she's solar system level. And even then, we don't know how much strength it would take to condense your mana to the point that it surpasses its own Schwarzschild radius. And if it's a spell, then it would fall back into the category of transmutation again. Oh, and don't even bother bringing up Yuki's black hole, because not only is it a self-destruct attack that she clearly doesn't normally scale to, but it's also a form of hacks instead of an actual power level, since all the mass that she's applying in order to create the black hole is merely virtual. Oh, it seems like a giant elephant entered my room. I think it needs some addressing. Let's listen to what it says.
Actually, Shiny, you're falling into the appeal to reality fallacy, bro.
Ah, the appeal to reality fallacy. The fallacy that occurs when one insists that a fictional character or concept is impossible because it violates real-world laws, which goes against the entire concept of it being fictional in the first place. Don't get me wrong, I can see why people would think that this video falls into this fallacy because I'm intentionally trying to compare fictional concepts to their real-world counterparts and then either validating them or invalidating them. But here's the thing, this is pretty much the entire basis of what cross-verse power scaling is. Sure, in verse, a character might be planetary in nature, but not every fictional planet is the same size. Like in Avatar: The Last Airbender, the city of Ba Sing Se takes up a considerable portion of the map. If you compare this to real life, you'd instantly realize that their planet is simply a lot smaller than Earth. Or like how the moon is hollow in the Naruto verse. Or like how the planet in Hunter x Hunter is estimated to be far larger than Earth. You cannot call feats based on this planetary level or moon level, etc. in good faith if you can compare them to their real world counterparts. If someone was capable of blowing up the planet in Avatar, it would obviously not need the same attack potency as someone blowing up the planet in Hunter x Hunter. So yes, comparing fiction to reality is literally a necessity when doing cross-verse power scaling. Sometimes that results in feats seeming less impressive, and sometimes that results in feats being more impressive than they seem. That's just the way the cookie crumbles. So, to wrap it up, I'll say that the only time that I can take a creation is destruction type argument seriously is when characters straight up use said creation to attack, like creating an asteroid and then launching it. Sure, that's good scaling. It's essentially the same thing as creating a large blast of energy and attacking with it. But you will absolutely lose me if you say that just because someone can create a volcano, it means that they can by proxy also output the same amount of energy required to destroy it. I'll also accept creation as destruction type arguments if characters are stated and shown for those two to be consistently linked with one another. If there were any inconsistencies in this video or little things in reasoning or logic that you disagree with, please be sure to let me know. I'm not a scientist or anything. Everything I said in this video is merely my opinion, based on a surface level understanding of physics and science. But regardless, I hope you enjoyed the video either way. I just had to get my thoughts out there since a lot of the power scaling wank has been getting out of control recently. I'm usually more grounded when it comes to scaling. Thank you for watching, your support is always much appreciated. See ya.
Thank you, USA. You are my best friend. You are the peacekeeper. You are the legend. Thank you, thank you.